Hello, you're watching Eye on Africa. I'm James Creedon. Here are our headlines this Monday evening. Somalia has a new president. Hassan Sheikh Mohamud was sworn in this Monday. We'll bring you all the latest at the top of the show. The German Chancellor has kicked off a three-nation visit to Africa, starting in Senegal. Much of the focus of this trip is on increased needs in Europe for African energy resources. We'll get some analysis from Dr. Douglas Yates of the American Graduate School in Paris. It's 1 year since the explosion of Mount Nyiragongo near Goma in the eastern DR Congo. Many families remain homeless as a result of the lava flow. We'll bring you an update 12 months later. Thanks for watching. Now, Hassan Sheikh Mohamud has become the new president of Somalia after a handover ceremony with the outgoing president, Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo. With all the day's news from Mogadishu and a sense of what lies ahead, here's France 24's Shirley Sitbon with a breakdown.
A celebration and a relief. After long squabbles over the electoral process and the vote just over a week ago, the new president of Somalia was handed power at last. Both the outgoing and incoming president said what matters is that the transfer of power went smoothly.
I am handing over the office of president to the newly elected president of the Federal Republic of Somalia, His Excellency Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, in a historic moment.
Today is a historic day that we should always remember. The outgoing president handed me over the office peacefully.
The new president has many extremely complicated issues to resolve urgently. There is the Al-Shabaab insurgency to address. The group seeking to overthrow the government is said to have consolidated its positions during the year-long political turmoil. And Somalia is about to face a historic food crisis. These images show how dry the country has been this year. A decade ago, 260,000 people perished of hunger. The drought this year is even worse. The hike of food prices, triggered by the war in Ukraine, complicates the situation even more. To avert many deaths, international aid must be organized at once at a very large scale.
The German Chancellor Olaf Scholz is in Niger, continuing a three-country tour of Africa. One of the main motivations, Germany is interested in new sources of energy. On Sunday, Scholz was in Senegal, where significant deposits of natural gas are located along its border with Mauritania. Germany and other European countries are urgently reducing dependence on importing Russian gas. Let's take a listen to Senegal's President Macky Sall speaking about the potential for deals to be struck.
Senegal is ready to work with a view to supplying the European market with liquid natural gas. But first we need to be supported in our participation under better conditions than those currently offered by our partners.
Now, for some analysis, we're joined now by expert in African politics and in particular issues around natural resources, Dr. Douglas Yates of the American Graduate School in Paris. Thanks for talking to us this evening on Eye on Africa. Now, we heard there from the Senegalese president. You get the sense that he's aware that there's been a slight tilt in the usual, perhaps, balance of power between European countries and African countries. Do you get the sense that they're going to leverage that, Macky Sall and others?
Yeah, everything's a question of timing. Oil and gas prices are cyclical. When they're high, it's a seller's market. And with the Ukraine crisis, geopolitically, Europe, and particularly Germany, is searching desperately for alternatives. There's another feature as well. Macky Sall's been in power a long time. He's got a lot of experience. This is Olaf Scholz's first official voyage to Africa, and he's kind of new to this game. So the Senegalese have the upper hand.
Now, Russia has influence in several West African countries. For anyone who's been following events in the last few months, even years, the Wagner private security group establishing itself to left, right and centre. Can African countries sit on the fence in terms of what's happening in Ukraine? Or are they going to be forced to pick a side, really? Because we can't dissociate what's happening in Europe right now from Olaf Scholz seeking new energy resource deals in Africa.
Right. There are some countries which clearly are not going to sit on the fence. And those are countries that perceive themselves as being benefited by Russian mercenaries. I'm thinking of Central African Republic, the new military regime, the coup plotters in Mali. But a lot of countries are traditional Western allies. And those who have not gone full force on the Western side and have tried to sit on the fence will find themselves in an increasingly uncomfortable position if this war continues. If it continues for a decade, then certainly countries will not be able to sit on the side. I think many of them are waiting it out, hoping perhaps that the war will peter out before the year is over. And Macky Sall is maybe one of those.
OK, and all going well, can you give us a sense of how significant these deals could be in Senegal, in Niger and elsewhere?
Well, okay, the gas deal that they're talking about. Senegal discovered gas in 2017, and they've already started producing some gas. They have an estimated 40 trillion cubic tons. It's an enormous amount of gas. But when you look at their GDP, the most that this would produce is something like 3% of their GDP. So they will not be a gas-dependent country. The real benefit would be the possibility of injecting that money into development, into paying off their debt, into building better infrastructure. But the other hand, the other shoe, is the oil curse. There's a real need for fishermen that if they do oil and gas development offshore, that they compensate fishermen for the losses. And there's the great danger of corruption. Petrosen, the national oil company, needs greater surveillance if they're going to be producing billions of cubic meters of gas every year.
Douglas Yates, we didn't have much time, but you got through a lot in terms of analysing the potential for those deals to be struck, the positives and the negatives. Thank you so much for talking to us this evening on Eye on Africa.
James.
Now, 1 year ago today, Mount Nyiragongo near Goma in the eastern DR Congo erupted. The lava stopped just hundreds of metres from the city's limits. It destroyed more than 3,000 houses along its path. The eruption shed light on the authorities' lack of preparation for the crisis and the chronic underfunding of the Goma Volcano Observatory. Now, 1 year on, many families remain homeless, but efforts have been made to better prepare if and when a similar disaster reoccurs. Our team reports.
Lucadia lost her house in the eruption of Mount Nyiragongo on the 22nd of May 2021. 1 year on, she still lives in this camp with her 6 children.
This is what we sleep on. It's wet because of the rain. We're suffering. We need help.
Most people affected by the eruption have moved into new homes, but 500 families are still waiting to be rehoused. Merveille says she's lost hope.
Nobody is helping us. When President Tshisekedi came here, he made promises, but nothing has changed.
In the aftermath of the eruption, the Congolese government had promised to do everything possible to prepare for another disaster, starting with increasing funding of the OVG, the Goma Volcano Observatory. This new lab was inaugurated earlier this year.
This is the Tshisekedi lab, our new seismology department.
4 new seismic stations have been installed to help researchers better monitor the volcano, but some of the OVG's equipment, like this warning siren, barely works.
We tried to sound the siren, but it can only be heard within a 500-meter radius. It's useless. We need to replace it.
Last year's evacuation of Goma was widely criticised as chaotic. Civil protection teams say they're now better prepared. These board games have been distributed to schools across the city.
The orange square here is the market and the road goes here.
Authorities have also promised to train dozens of community leaders.
Civil protection teams will train emergency response leaders within the local community. They'll be able to, first, identify warning signs, and two, to share alerts with the Civil Protection Hotline.
A new contingency plan is set to be unveiled before the end of June.
Kenya is amongst 3 African countries currently trialling a new means of administering antiretroviral HIV treatment. It comes in the form of injections administered once every 2 months. The most recent treatments have required patients to take 1 pill every day. Scientists hope that this innovation will encourage more people to seek out treatment.
Benta Agala has been living with HIV for the past 21 years. Every day she must take a mixture of antiretroviral drugs, a lifelong time-consuming treatment which she cannot hide from others.
It has been quite a long journey. You carry your drugs everywhere and you make sure you take them in time.
Many HIV patients are discouraged by this lengthy process and by the stigma that comes with making their illness public. But a new injectable drug could now be a game changer for treating the virus.
It also make people who are still hiding themselves to come out and go take the drugs because they're afraid to go for drugs because of rejection and discrimination or even stigma.
The drug, which was approved by U.S. health authorities earlier this year, is currently undergoing trials in Kenya, Uganda, and South Africa. It comes in the form of a single injection, which only needs to be repeated every 2 months. A simple and discreet process which could encourage more people to take up HIV treatment.
Sometimes some patients experience drug fatigue. They experience drug fatigue and also they experience a lot of stigma around HIV.
Of an estimated 1.5 million people who are HIV positive in Kenya, only about 2/3 are receiving treatment. Scientists now hope this new injectable drug can convince the remaining 500,000 to seek medical help.
All right, that's all for this edition. Stay tuned. More live from Paris coming up shortly with Mark Owen.
It was not until 2004 that Romania's full role in the Holocaust was revealed, second in significance only to Nazi Germany itself. The city of Iași experienced one of the deadliest pogroms of the Second World War, with the number of victims in the hundreds of thousands. Today, the Jewish community is just 3,000 people, and Romanian historians are fighting to instill a duty of remembrance.
25%, 30% seulement de la population de la Roumanie connaît d'une manière correcte l'histoire de la Shoah.
The Shoah remains a largely taboo subject in Romania, and the fear of seeing the mistakes of the past repeated is growing.
Revisited on France 24 and France24.com.